Hey, I'm Bob and I like to make stuff. Today we're going to make a new table for a podcast studio. You may know that I do a podcast called Making It with Jimmy DiResta and David Picciuto, but I also do one with Josh called No Instructions. We sit at this table here, we talk about family and life and movies and whatever while we build models and make Lego sets. This isn't really working out so well anymore, so today we're going to build a new table just for the podcast so that we don't have to sit at this ping pong table. Let's do it. Let's start in the notebook and sketch this out so you know where we're headed. We're going to make a really simple steel frame out of square tubing. It's going to be just like this, and then it's going to have some cross pieces and then a center kind of stringer that runs across it to hold it in shape. The top will be covered with a big piece of butcher block, and then we'll cover the front and the two sides with some sort of a cool treatment. All right, let's go cut some steel. I know we need to clean this up, and that's coming in a future project. We got these pieces of steel from a local steel yard, and the cool thing is that they will pretty much cut anything to size while you're there. You just have to pay a little bit for it. So if you don't have a tool like this that can cut these down, you may want to look at that option. But I do want to point out that this saw is the cheapest possible saw that I could find that did this action. It was only a couple $100 and it's worked great. So if you're going to do a lot of this type of work, you may want to look at one of these to invest in. I've got all these pieces cut and they're really clean along the outside, but they're all going to be butt joints. They're going to be put together like this. So I want to make sure that I chamfer all of these edges so there's a nice little crevice for the weld material to go into. Take all of these to the belt grinder and add that chamfer. Got these two simple frames done. Now the next step is to connect them from the top sections and one of the bottom sections. To do that, I have to grind down this weld so that there's a nice flat surface here so that the piece can butt right up against this edge. Now we just have to do more welds to get these three cross pieces together, so it's montage time. All right, the frame is basically done. We still got a little grinding to do on some of the exposed faces, but this went together really, really quickly. It's just super simple welding. Now the next step is to make some tabs that are going to go on the inside face so that we can inset a wooden panel into here and it'll be flush with the back side of this. So we're going to cut some little pieces of steel, tack them on here and drill some holes in them so we can drive screws into the wood. Now I'm going to stack up a few of these at a time, put them in the vise, and then drill a hole through the end of them all at one time. It's just easier and actually safer than holding them individually. I've got these super simple tabs ready. These are going to be welded onto this face right here so the wooden panel can come in here and then you drive in a screw to hold it in place. Now after we do that, we also have to put on some castors. So I've got some castors here that are the right size. I'm going to weld them into the corners just by putting in a little tack on two of these spots. This is probably covered in zinc. And if you weld that, it creates a really nasty fume you don't want to breathe. So if you do this, make sure that you have really good ventilation happening. This thing rolls really nicely. It's just about done as far as the metalworking. I've got a little bit more grinding to do, and I want to drill some holes through these top pieces so that you can drive screws up through the steel into the wooden top when we get to that point. So I'm going to do that, grind away a few more things, and then this is ready for paint. I drilled the same size hole through the top and the bottom. Now I've got a stepped bit. I'm going to come up from the bottom and make that bottom hole bigger so that the head of the screw that I put in can actually go through and seat on the top side of the steel. This video is sponsored by Skillshare, and Skillshare is an awesome online learning community where you can learn just about anything. They've got classes on technology, design, entrepreneurship, and podcasting. In fact, there's a whole class called How to Make a Podcast that tells you everything you need to know, from choosing gear to recording and uploading the podcast. If that's something you're interested in, you should definitely go check it out. And the first 500 people to hit the link down in the description get 2 months of Skillshare Premium for free. And you can learn a whole lot of stuff in 2 months. Even after that 2 months, it's really inexpensive. It's less than $10 a month, and you have access to everything on Skillshare. It is absolutely worth investing in your own learning, and Skillshare is an awesome way to do that. So be sure to go check them out, and thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Yesterday we finished up the frame and it went really well, really quickly, and I wanted to point out that the paint that I used on it was a Rust-Oleum high performance enamel. I'm not sponsored by them in any way, but it went on really well, really evenly. It dried in about 15 minutes, and it was like cloudy and 36 degrees outside. So I would highly recommend that if you're going to be making steel frames or anything like that. Now we're going to move on to the countertop, and for that we got this big piece of butcher block from Lowe's. It's already the right depth, so we're just going to cut it down to length, and then we can put some finish on. The top is cut down, it's setting up here waiting for finish, and in the meantime I started working on cutting down these panels of MDF. These are going to sit right in here once I get them trimmed down a little bit more. Then there's going to be a big panel that's going to go on the front side. Now Josh has been working on a pattern to CNC into that panel, so I'm going to send it over to him to explain that.
So this is the panel that's going to go on the front of the table. 4B designed a really cool repeating pattern. It looks like a bunch of circuits, and I'm going to cut it in using the CNC. Even though we have a huge CNC, it is still not big enough to do this entire 6-foot long panel, so we have to do it in 2 different cut paths. The first one I have is going to cut from this end to probably about right here, and then I'm going to stop it, flip this whole thing 180 degrees around, and then cut the remainder. So it says 2 different paths, but because it's going to be stuck in this exact same corner, it should line up perfectly.
So here's the finished table. I'm super happy with how it turned out, and it fits the space perfectly. Obviously, if you don't have a big CNC, you could replace that panel down there with just about anything. There's a huge amount of space underneath it. You could build some shelves for storage, and this thing could be used in a bunch of different situations.
No Instructions Podcast can be found on all of your podcasting players right now, and if you want to watch what we're building, you can check out our YouTube channel at No Instructions Podcast.
If this project gave you an idea for a work surface that you could build in your house, maybe in your kitchen or in your workshop, we would love to hear about it down in the comments. We've also got tons of other types of projects that you may want to check out, and if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that as well. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bunch of different situations.
I thought you were going to listen.
Over to you, Josh. Hey, email. I'm really happy with how this thing turned out. It looks awesome and fits this space.
It should line up perfectly.